Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined today by my colleague, Tom Wike, who's the Wembley Stadium Health and Safety Manager. So fantastic job to have, massive variation. We're going to get into that in a moment. But Tom's offered to come and talk to us today about, well, his career, how he started. We want this to be a real sort of career-focused conversation, really. So I'll pass over to Tom, and Tom can give us a bit of a potted history, perhaps, of how he came to be the Health and Safety Manager at Wembley. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Matt. Yeah, great to speak to you. And hopefully, I don't know how valuable this will be for people, but hopefully it will be quite good just to give a bit of an idea of what my career path has been, and anything that I can help people along the way, just in terms of how I've got into this really fortunate position that I'm in at the moment. This is quite a scary position, obviously.
Yeah.
Safety manager for Wembley Stadium, biggest stadium in the UK and second biggest in Europe, but it's a great position to be in. But as every sort of good story starts, mine started with a quick chat with my uncle. So I was in a position, I'd just finished a management trainee scheme, a graduate management trainee scheme with Enterprise, and it was great, but I'd kind of reached the ceiling of how far I was going to go. So I left that role, and I was looking for my next sort of challenge and opportunity. And I spoke to my uncle and I said, what, you work in health and safety, that's taken you all over the world. You're working in Thailand at the moment. You've done Taiwan high-speed railway, all kinds of great projects, Dubai and all over the world. That sounds quite interesting. How did you get into it? And he was one of your standard kind of army leavers, pick a course off this list. Which one do you want to do for when you leave the army? And it worked really well for him. And he basically turned around and said to me, go and do a NEBOSH certificate. It'll take you 2 weeks. If you like it, you can continue on with it. You might find a good job out of it. If you don't like it, you've only wasted 2 weeks out of your life. And I kind of ummed and ahed a little bit and decided to go for it. And one of the things that was great about doing a certificate was I did a classroom-based learning. And it was the teacher. So I thought I was going to go in there and everybody would be handed out a clipboard as they walked in and a high-vis jacket and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And you get taught the word no quite a lot and how to use it in different situations. But it wasn't like that at all. It was kind of how you engage with people, the basics of the hazards, the risks and all that kind of stuff, but more about how you can do it to achieve things. So to achieve goals, to, help the business achieve its goals, but then also about the moral responsibilities and all that kind of thing, and where health and safety comes into it. And I actually really enjoyed it, did quite well with the certificate and thought, yeah, this isn't a bad job. So I decided to progress onto the diploma. I got a job with a company that did CITB tests and training. So that was a real sort of great hotbed to get me into it, from the people who really embraced health and safety to the people who kind of saw it as something they had to do to get a card and go and work on a site and that kind of thing. But that, it was really good to give me that exposure. And then I got to a point where I finished my diploma. I was looking for the next option. And I, strange story with the Football Association. I applied for a job with the Football Association as health and safety coordinator. So their kind of basic level. I thought, right, foot on the ladder, this will get me up there and I'll be able to work my way through. I didn't hear anything back for a couple of weeks. And then I speaking to a friend and saw an opportunity to go over to Australia for a couple of years with a travel and work visa. So I thought, you know what, yeah, I've applied for a few jobs. I've not found anything yet. I'm going to go and travel to Australia and go over there and see how I get on. The next day I get an email from the Football Association saying, do you fancy coming down to Wembley for an interview? And I thought, no, I've booked everything. So I'm not going to bother. I was living up near Liverpool at the time. I'm not going to bother heading down because I've booked my flights. I'm ready to go to Australia. The very next email I got was from Virgin Trains saying £10 special offer down to London. So I thought, that's a good sign. Maybe I should go. So I thought, you know what? Not many people get to go and interview down at Wembley Stadium. I'm going to go for it. So going for the interview, the guys were really impressed with my CV, even though it was, only fairly basic with the health and safety experience that I had so far. The fact that I'd done the diploma made me stand out from all the other candidates, and they were really keen to get me on board. And they were actually so keen to get me on board, instead of offering me the coordinator role, they offered me the role of health and safety advisor, which was basically the next one up. Yeah. So it's kind of, wow, and this was the real crossroads for me. And this is sort of one of the key points is, at all points during your career and at all points in life, to be fair, you're going to come up with decisions and you kind of have to take the left path or the right path. And for me, this was the first real crossroads that I faced, especially from a career point of view. And I was really, really umming and ahhing in terms of what to do. But the opportunity that was presented with Wembley and the Football Association was definitely something I couldn't turn down. So basically I picked the path of jumping on the train a couple of weeks later, moving down to London, and I've been here ever since. So I've been here for just over 4 years now, and worked my way up through the Football Association.
Yeah, we've had absolute progression, but you've made your own luck, Tom, as well, haven't you, by taking the qualifications you've taken. You've just completed an MBA as well, because I know you've got, you're an ambitious guy. I know. We've spoken about one of your colleagues who who's a chief operating officer, who started off life as a health and safety person, and the fact now that if you prove your credentials across a business, there's no reason why your career can't go from strength to strength to strength.
I think that's a real key point. So one of the, as you mentioned, the COO of one of our sort of key stakeholders who own a lot of land and do a lot of development around the stadium is came up the ranks through health and safety. And I think it's more and more evident that people in health and safety roles are being appreciated for what they bring to the business. And I think that's one of the things. If you can develop a bit more of a commercial acumen, if you can develop the way you engage with people and the way that you can actually work together to get things done in a safe manner, rather than being seen as the blocker, which unfortunately health and safety has traditionally been seen as, it's really easy in a way to grow your career and grow your development, because people are seeing that health and safety interacts with so many different parts of the business that then helps you sort of develop and grow into those bigger roles, which is great. And I've just finished my MBA, so I really enjoyed doing that. Modules over in Dubai and Toulouse and up at Bradford University, and it was great to speak to people in completely different roles and hear that we all face the same kind of challenges and the same issues, and to see that health and safety can be used as an enabler, as I say, to get things done in the business world, which is great. And yeah, without worrying people at Wembley, because I'm loving this role so far and I'm fairly new into it, so I'm keen to stay here and really grow the team and grow the management system that we've got in place. But I think one of the key things with career development is always look to your next step. Yeah. So that's the reason I did the MBA, was to get me back into a kind of management position, and that's worked out really well with the role that I'm in now. But it's now looking at what does the next role that you're interested in, maybe in 3, maybe in 5, maybe in 10 years time, look at as the key skills, look at as the desirable qualities to have in individuals. And if you can start looking towards those roles and start tailoring your CV and getting that experience, getting those courses under your belt for those kind of roles that you're looking to develop into, I think the world is your oyster in terms of you can always keep stepping forward, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us really nicely, Tom, into, I know you're hiring at the moment for a new member of your team. So as the hiring manager, what are you going to be looking for to somebody who you're looking to appoint?
Yeah, so this is obviously a bit new to me. I've worked in sort of recruiting for roles before, but for recruiting for health and safety, this is all very new for me now. So it's great to kind of look at the CVs that are coming in. We've got one role, we've had 147 applicants for it, and it's really, really good applicants. It's really difficult to pick between people. But I think the key is to look for people who have taken roles and taken experience and really made the most of it. So people who have developed their careers either with the same employer or by going up from, kind of lower roles up, taking those experiences, taking those qualifications, taking the opportunities where they can to develop themselves, to really show that they're passionate and professional in the industry. So that's sort of one of the really key things. I think, it's some of the basics in terms of tailoring your CV and tailoring the cover letter. It may be that you feel like you're not quite qualified for that role because it's in a stadium, or because it's to do with logistics, or because it's in a construction. But one of the key things are, we've got so many transferable skills that if you can tailor and say, look, while I may not know about health and safety in a stadium, I know about hazards and risks in this environment and in this environment, and this is how I'm going to basically apply myself in your role, then I think that's key, and it just makes it so much more personal. It makes it so much more considered compared to just sending a generic CV to people. And then the other thing is basically making sure that not only do you meet the threshold capabilities, but you've shown some of the achievements that you've done. And some of the key achievements are about how you've worked with people, how you've developed management systems, how you've developed cross collaboration with different teams and all those kind of things, because the qualifications certainly get you in the door, but it's how you can interact with people and how you can deal with people and actually make a difference that help you kind of stay there and help you thrive in a role.
I think you've alluded to the fact actually that at the stadium, on the face of it, I might think, well, it's events, and you've said to me previously, it's so much more than events. you know, because do you want to explain a little bit about that, Tom, about the type of things that you do?
Yeah, so it's obviously what a lot of people see. You know, it's the national stadium. We've got 90,000 people. We do concerts for up to 100,000 people, and that's kind of what it's known for. But what a lot of people don't know is the FA base sort of a good majority of their staff at the stadium. So we've got office space for up to sort of 800 people. We have a university that's based out of the stadium, UCFB. So they've come back in the last couple of weeks. And, you know, obviously with all the sort of hazards and risks that education can bring and bringing people into the environment, especially at the moment in terms of COVID. But then we also need to keep the stadium, we need to keep on our toes and keep the stadium looking its best. So, you know, from a property point of view, from a facilities management, from a capital expenditure and really reinventing the stadium as it needs to be, keeping our spaces as great as they possibly can. You know, there's so much more that goes on. And that's why, you know, it's such a varied role. Obviously, the role that I'm recruiting for at the moment is extremely varied. I think that's why it's really good for people to get in, and it gives them great experience, which one, they can use to develop themselves and never have a dull day at work, which I think is one of the most important things. But two, also feel like they're developing as a person and, you know, really seeing the fruits of their labor. It's great if you can be involved in a project from the beginning, you know, whether it be a sort of £2 million new bar that we're building, and you can see from what it goes from to what it ends up being, and you can see that it's done in a safe manner. You can see that the design phase is safe to allow 800 people, 1,000 people go through that bar on an event day, all those kind of things. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, you know, it seems, I don't know, it seems a bit sort of innocent really, but when I've been involved in projects like that and you've gone past with your family, you go, I was involved in that, or you can sort of, I built that, you know, and I know you're just one of many, many people, but, you know, as you say, if you can take pride in something that looks beautiful, it's fit for purpose, you know, it's a big thing in your work, isn't it? You know, and you absolutely get that from being involved in the ski industry. And one thing I'd like to ask Tom is, you know, you've been in senior roles for quite a while, but I'm really interested in what an average day looks like for you.
I think what's interesting is how your average day changes as your career kind of progresses. And I think, you know, you come in as kind of a health and safety advisor, and a lot of it is boots on the ground. A lot about it is engagement directly with the operatives and people who are doing things, and, you know, audits, inspections, and all those kind of bits and pieces. And then it kind of develops through to, the higher you get a bit more desk-based, unfortunately. So I'm now one of the main key bits in my role is to oversee the whole sort of strategic operation for health and safety and the direction that we're taking, with an aim to obviously improve the health and safety performance on an ongoing basis of the stadium. And a lot of that obviously is very meetings based. It's a lot about engagement with higher level people. So engagement with the SMT, whether you're looking for extra resources, whether you're looking for extra time, whether you're looking for people just to buy into different training courses and those kind of things. And then engagement with kind of all the workers and making sure that line managers know their responsibilities, line managers are doing what they can from a health and safety point of view. Because it's impossible to manage health and safety yourself. You might be the health and safety manager, but it's impossible to actually manage the whole process. You can't manage it from the person who's mowing the pitch at Wembley all the way to the person who's making the decisions up in the boardroom kind of thing. Everybody needs to be empowered. Everybody needs to be engaged to make the right decision. And that's when the culture is right. So health and safety culture is always talked about all the way through, but only by working with people at all the different levels can you do it. And that's one of the key things I look for in an advisor, is that they can come in and they can really engage with people to make sure that culture stays the same. Cultures are very different depending on the industry as a rule, and that's something that people can struggle to adapt to. So, you know, for example, oil and gas industry culture is very much focused on getting things right first time, following procedures, following processes. It's very process driven, which certainly has its place in oil and gas, and that's how it works really well. But unfortunately, in some of the other industries, people don't see it like that, and you can't get workers and operatives to buy into those process driven things. So you kind of have to adapt your thinking and adapt how you go about dealing with people to make sure they can still stay safe.
Yeah, I mean, you make such an important point. Somebody I was talking to recently was just newly appointed as a health safety advisor, and they felt absolutely that they owned health and safety, and what they were trying to achieve was impossible, and the pressure they were putting on themselves was crazy. So the way you've described it there, as, you know, you might be the ambassador, you might be the talisman for it, but you can't own it, and you shouldn't own it, because that's not where maturity comes in. So I think if anything comes from some of these videos and some of these conversations, is if we can put over to new entrants to the profession to sort of say, actually, it's not all on your shoulders. It can't possibly be. And actually, that's not what you want anyway, because that's not where maturity comes. And we will have done our colleagues a service, really. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, the key thing is to have a bit of a plan and a bit of a process. So I know when I first started in a managerial role, the first thing I did was a gap analysis, because you need to know where you are, you need to know where you want to be, and then you can work out kind of, right, you've got those 2 points, what does the middle look like, and how do you make the middle work? And only by doing that can you take more of a strategic view, rather than being stuck in the weeds and going and doing everything that you need to do without actually popping your head up and seeing, where do I want to be? Try and take a bit more of a holistic view. Don't get too stuck down in doing what you've always done, because you need to look at how you can make those improvements, because that's the main difference when you go from kind of an advisor to a manager role. You need to be looking at those strategic improvements you can make.
Good advice, Tom. I mean, with the events industry being where it is, the fact that there's not going to be sort of any need for lots of stewards at the national stadium for a while. Let's hope it's not for too long. How do you maintain competency in your supply chain so that they can still do the job that you need them to do when match day or concert day comes around?
Yeah, so it's a really tricky one. And obviously, you know, by the time we're looking at March now, that we could potentially have events with people, and you know, we will have had almost 12 months of no events, or 12 months of very reduced events, so behind closed doors events, which sort of require 80 stewards compared to the up to 3,000 stewards, as an example, that we've had a full bowl event. Yeah, and that is the key thing. So some of the work that we've been doing is basically working with some of the stewarding companies that we've got and that we work hand in hand with to actually issue new contracts. And it may seem a really strange time to do this when we don't know when the events are coming back, but that gives them the stability, the assurances that when things do come back, we can turn straight back on. And in turn, that also gives them the resources to keep their staff trained, keep their staff motivated, keep their staff available. In some cases, you know, stewards are quite well regulated in terms of what they have to have NVQ-wise, all those kind of things. So we need to keep on top of that to make sure everybody's still available. But then we've also got the roles that aren't as well regulated. So, you know, as simple as some of the kind of logistical roles, some of the catering roles, the hospitality roles, all those kind of things. And one of the key points that we've worked on is ensuring that we've got good return to work plans. So making sure that we've got training plans. So before people come back, whether it's delivered online through new inductions, what the changes will be when you come back into the stadium, whether it be you know, looking at the training register and making sure that any licenses that have expired, we need to go and do more training and all that kind of thing to keep people safe. But again, you have to take such a holistic view of it. It's so tricky because there's so many changes and so many things that nobody's ever faced before. And you're just making sure that when we do get the go ahead and when we can reopen the doors, that we can do it in a safe manner.
Yeah, I think, well, I think you said at the beginning of our conversation that no 2 days are the same, and the way things are rolling at the minute, that's certainly the case. Hey Tom, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy. Thanks for being a great ambassador for NEBOSH Quals as well.
No problem, Matt. Thanks very much for inviting me.
See you soon.